In Mandera, there are areas and there is the notion that coronavirus isn't quite something they ought to be worried about.
No, thank you, Mark. The connection is sometimes as good as it could be, but I'm clearly getting you most of the time. Now, what I would like to say is that I'm not really surprised. Pandemics, have occurred throughout history. And there are always those people who are vulnerable to pandemics. For instance, we know that pandemics, whenever they came, they would take tens to hundreds of millions of people. But they only take people who are vulnerable in a certain way. In fact, if you look even at the Bible itself, the Bible gives instructions about physical distancing very, very well. I believe I can quote that, Isaiah 26:20, which says, "Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors till this is over." So in other words, physical distancing is something that is ordained by God. Now, what are those vulnerabilities that make you vulnerable when it comes? What makes it possible for it to sweep you and leave somebody else? What makes that possible are certain things. Number one is lack of using the wisdom of the day. For instance, today we know the science, we know the wisdom of the day. We know that if what you need to do to get it. The other thing is, of course, people who do not change their behaviors, who do not believe, people who are cynicism. So yes. In other words, epidemics can take and also disable lots and lots of people, change the ways of lives, but only in certain ways. So what should be done? People need to realize that we are living at this time, unfortunately, a pandemic life.
Yes.
Our generation has been faced with a pandemic life.
And
therefore, to survive the pandemic, and it's the whole world, there are certain things we need to do in order to survive. And those things are clear today. The science is there. It's a question of now the citizens who really would like to, at the end of this, to be around and to be untouched, to do the right thing. And the right thing is, of course, is not to get infected at this time, is to avoid infection. That's the only answer. But I really appreciate, if you can allow me to comment, I can see a lot of efforts by the county governments, from the national government, by the county government. There is a lot of effort at that level. But now, now we need to go down to the lay leaders, the youth leaders, the religious leaders who should preach this word about physical distancing. We need to go to that level, because that's what I see that is missing. We need to go to the people who normally act as politicians, but this time acting on health messaging, not political messaging, but health messaging down at the grassroots.
Dr.
We need
Mathenge,
to activate grassroots leadership in the elders, in the Nyumba Kumi, in the sub-chiefs and the chiefs, to deliver that message to those people who still don't believe it. Because
very crucial.
It is our fault if we have not communicated enough. We have not warned people enough that this is serious. This is serious.
And it is
strategy.
Apologies for just interrupting, and I'm totally agreeing with that point. It's just to get onto something a bit more specific to the Mwananchi, as you say that this needs to get to the ground, to the county level. There's one of the issues there, the markets, where many Kenyans, hundreds, thousands of Kenyans visit the markets. And there is a reality of coronavirus, but there's a reality of making a living on a day-to-day basis. How would you advise those who have to visit a market to get food and even have to engage in that trade?
Now, let me go back a little, if you allow me, let me go back a little bit and say, look at what has happened, let's say, in China, in Spain, and anywhere else. The people that, our situation could be slightly different from the situation in, for instance, we have a very young population. We have a population, in fact, whose median age is about 19 years, compared to America, where the median age is 43 years. So nobody knows how this pandemic will hit sub-Saharan Africa, where the population dynamics are completely different. We have other things in this situation that are completely different. For instance, We have other infections. We have a population that has other infections, like, for instance, things like malaria, even including HIV in sub-Saharan Africa, nutritional issues. We do not know how this will hit us. When you look at that, we are waiting as the health professionals and scientists to see how will this hit us. Because, for instance, we are in the West and in China, it is an old people's disease. But we don't know what, clearly we cannot tell for sure what it will be here, because our young people may be vulnerable in terms of the fact that we have this double burden of disease, of infections, which also compromise immunity, and also, of course, other diseases. Now, when you look at those dynamics, I think we have to be extremely careful how we deal with it. What is the best strategy? The best strategy is what we are doing, and that is containment. It's the one that is affordable. We cannot afford the next level, which is a mitigation, which is dealing with the people when they are already sick. We can't afford that. No system in the world has been able to afford that. We don't have enough, critical care beds. We don't have enough health infrastructure to support this. So our best bet is to go full scale into containment, which is physical distancing. And by the way, I heard a lot about 1 meter. The accepted physical distancing now is 6 feet, which is about 2 meters. But nobody can be blamed for that, because when we started, we were talking about 1 meter, now we talk about 6 feet. And when, of course, that's the key. It is affordable, it is practical, and through mobilization, full mobilization, it is possible to actually avert the epidemic and make it just a smoldering disease like any other disease.
Daktari, if I may interject at this point, you're talking about the full-scale measures that need to be taken, and you do borrow from other countries that have faced this coronavirus, China, Italy, and some of the measures that they have put in place is issues like a lockdown. Is that something that we could actually afford, given our reality as an economy?
Now, let me tell you, Mark, at the level at which our epidemic is, at the level at which it is very possible to institute very aggressive containment and preventive measures and avoid a lockdown.
Yes.
Because it is still early on. Okay, given we have now 100 cases and we don't know how many people are symptomatic out there. But if, for instance, you are able to capture the majority of the affected people through data collection, who has come through the airports over the last 2 months. There's nobody, follow these people aggressively. And this is happening, by the way. I'm not saying it's not happening.
Yes.
Because like the FCA said yesterday, we would be elsewhere if this has not been happening. But it can even be taken further data collection, chase those people, look for these people, look for their contacts, contain them both, in fact, mostly activate the grassroots oversight systems like Nyumba Kumi and elders and sub-chiefs, and contain these people in home settings. If you are able to do that, you are going to reduce the pandemic to a situation whereby it is like any other disease. You see, what everybody is talking about, flattening the curve, is about capturing all these people, stopping the exponential growth of the pandemic, and therefore being able to have the system able to cope. Because I can give you an example, Mark. We, as a cardiologist, we know that every week there may be about 100 heart attacks that occur in the country. 10% of those go to ICUs. But what happens if you get 2,000 heart attacks in a week? There will be no capacity to do that. So we can reduce the pandemic by containment through data collection, very targeted and aggressive testing to identify those affected and those at risk, extending the ways of confining them and monitoring through the systems that are there. If that is done aggressively, you can actually have life go on quite normally in terms of like what we are doing now. We have a curfew, but during the day people can work and therefore be able to avoid a lockdown. I don't think it's too late yet. But life is to institute those kind of measures.
But it has been repeated over and over again that these are extraordinary times and they call for extraordinary measures. And yesterday, C.S. Mutai urged strongly that people stay put and desist from moving up country where they might feel safer. Just re-emphasize and reiterate that message, because it, for many, would seem it is safer to be up country, where, because I'm not even working at the moment, because many companies have scaled down. Why not just go up country where I would be able to be secure, for instance, with the issue of food?
Yes, I hope I have heard you fully. But to reiterate that point, in terms of that, remember when we talked about containment.
Yes.
Contain disease where it is. And how do you contain it? First of all, we know how it came to us. It came from elsewhere. So even regionally, we will be able to take it to our vulnerable people out there. That's very well expressed by the CAs. But let me put it this way. It extends even beyond visiting other regions. It extends to when you now stay in your house, because the other thing the government is saying is stay home unless you have to get out. It means you do not visit, even within Nairobi, and you don't get visited. I can tell you, yesterday I had a 52-year-old gentleman who was telling me, who is very, very health conscious, one of my clients, and he told me he's done all that he has done, because we've talked before, but he has the early 20s year-olds who are still going out. He is staying at home, but his 22-year-olds are going out occasionally. And of course, I was asking, where are they going? I thought everything, the social thing was closed. So that I told him that what you're doing amounts to really nothing, because even if you stay in your house, but somebody goes out and comes back. So it means that even you are not visited and you don't visit. In fact, the idea during a pandemic is, unless you can't hide from the pandemic.
Yes.
And hiding means, and that means that therefore that when it is over, you'll be there. Now, for instance, in this particular case, remember we are suffering because we have no immunity, because we are dealing with a completely new bug.
Yes.
If you survive the pandemic, then you even know, when there is treatment and when there's a vaccine, when it is neutralized. But if you make some foolhardy decisions, like not listening to the guidelines of the government or the wisdom of the day, then the storm sweeps you. And remember, it can, if many people do not follow, then it will cause problems for the whole society.
Dr.
So as an individual, do not, make sure you do all you can not to get it. As a community,
yes,
the same. And of course, for all of us, it is at this moment, let's help the government, let's do the best we can to contain it, so as maybe not to get to a lockdown. But of course, if that is not possible, that could still come, because all measures have been done to prevent the catastrophe that can occur.
Yes.
If it is not done. Yes.
Yes. Sorry to rush you. We have less than 3 minutes to wrap up, but you've spoken about there not being a cure at the moment, and many scientists are working towards getting a vaccine. But we've also heard of recoveries. Explain this to the Mwananchi, that someone recovers from this particular coronavirus. Does this mean that they cannot contract it again and they've built an immunity against it? How do we explain that?
Now, there has been a few reports of people who recovered and then turned positive. But from what is known through the other viruses that are similar infections, some immunity is conferred mostly. So all the data is not out, but there's no reason to believe today that people who get infected will not be immune. And immunity means two things. Either you don't get it, you are protected fully from not getting it. Or secondly, if you get it, it is just a mild disease. So we should have full faith that once you've gotten it and you have recovered, that you will immunity confirmed. There's no reason not to believe that. Okay. And if you allow me, Mark, before you finish, I'd like to talk about the mask.
Just less than a minute.
Should be, I thought it was important we talk about.
Certainly. Go ahead.
Whenever you are not able to maintain the physical distance of 6 meters, which means you are in a border, tuk-tuk or whatever, if you are not able to maintain the physical distance of 6 meters, it is not assured, and these are many circumstances, then you should wear a mask. I wanted to make that comment.
Can someone use, for instance, if it's not accessible to you, even a handkerchief, some rudimentary measures to protect yourself, to cover this particular general area, your mouth and your nose?
In total agreement with that, because we know that the major route is the droplets, and it's best when it stops the person who is infected from having that those droplets get out. So whether it is whatever you can use to stop, although if it is a cloth mask, is preferred if it is cotton. Okay, yes. But anything that will hold the droplets will be helpful.
Dr. Mathenge, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us this morning.